there. Today I'd like to show you how to make one of my favorite one-pot meals, paella. It's a Spanish rice dish that has a mixture of different meats, beautiful yellow color that comes from saffron, and some different vegetables. You can make your paella seafood paella, you can omit the seafood, chicken and sausage paella, or you can mix it up, which is what we're doing today. This is a perfect dish to serve for a dinner party. It's vibrant, it's light enough for a summer night, but it's definitely has some substance to it. But it's also simple enough for you to make on a weeknight. So let's get started. So paella rice, we see it a lot as called bomba rice in the United States. It's a medium grain rice that's a little bit stout, and it doesn't have as much starch content, so it will stay a little bit looser than a sticky rice or a short grained rice. If you don't have medium grained rice, no worries. Use the rice that you have on hand. I have some chicken stock over here. I'll bring it up here. That I added a nice hefty pinch of saffron to. Here's what saffron looks like when you purchase it. It's the inside stems of a flower, and they're picked and then dried. They smell really just beautiful. Okay, so let's get started making this. I've heated up my pan. You want to use a shallow pan like a sauté pan, or this is shaped very similar to a paella pan in that it's shallow but has a wide base. This way the rice and the meat can all cook at the same time. To it, we're going to add a little bit of oil. See how our oil is shimmering? That's what we want, to know that it's nice and warmed up. And we're going to add some diced onions. I'm adding about a cup, and I've got some beautiful red bell peppers. Again, this dish is really just so vibrant and looks so good. Let's get this started sweating, and then let's talk about the meats that you can use. Today we're going to use boneless, skinless chicken thighs because chicken thighs tend to stay juicier and more moist than a chicken breast. Skinless and boneless because it's going to be cooking in a stock. The skin would become very rubbery and not so tasty. And boneless because that way it's going to cook about the same amount of time that it takes for the rice to cook. It's about a 20-minute cooking time. If you want to use chicken that's on the bone, you absolutely can, but you need to start it beforehand. In that case, I like to roast it because it develops a nice caramelized texture, and it'll finish very easily in our paella. Always skinless. We're also going to use sausage. If you can find a lovely Spanish sausage, that's wonderful to use in it. Otherwise, any type of smoked sausage will work very well. So if you even get smoked kielbasa, that'll work for this dish. Okay, you can see that my onions and peppers are starting to soften. My onions are becoming a little bit more translucent. So to this, I'm going to add some canned diced tomatoes. You don't want a lot of the juices, so drain that off or just pull the diced tomatoes out, and we're going to get this nice and soft. I'm going to make little holes in it, and I'm going to season our chicken thighs with just a little bit of salt and pepper. I like to put a little thin layer of oil on them, and then I'm going to pop them in the pan so that they are going to start browning in my tomato, onion, pepper mixture. So let's add these all in. So this is going to, the flavors are going to start mingling. Add a touch more salt to it. We want to flavor as we go because the salt is going to allow the rice to season as it's cooking, as well as the vegetables. So now you can hear that it's got a nice sizzle going on. We're going to also add our sausage in. The sausage I'm using is already cooked, but it has a really nice amount of fat in it. So as it simmers along with everything else, that fat will come out, and that will also add a nice amount of flavor to the dish. In here, you can even pick a spice that's a little bit on the, or a sausage that's a little bit on the spicy side if you do like a little bit of heat. So let's turn our chicken over. We're gonna let that simmer and cook and let all the flavors combine. One of the things we'll be adding at the end, once almost everything is fully cooked, so you only have a thin layer of liquid, and I'll show you that stage. We're going to add whatever seafood we wanted to, because seafood cooks extremely fast. Some fresh peas and artichoke hearts. So it's lovely when you have a one pot dish where all your veggies are inside. You really don't need to serve this with anything other than maybe a nice green salad is what I would choose. Okay, so let's add our rice. Got about 2 cups of rice in here, and then we're going to add about 4 cups of chicken stock that's already flavored with the saffron. Okay. I kind of like to get my rice a little toasted before I add my stock. So let's add our stock in. Okay, so we're going to make sure that the rice is nice and evenly distributed down at the bottom, because at this point, we don't want to touch or stir our paella until we're ready to serve it. So we want to make sure the chicken is tucked in, there's no rice sitting on the top of our meats or vegetables, because it will not get cooked that way. And then just scrape the sides of the pan clean so everything is under, and you're going to keep this cooking at a nice gentle simmer. So we don't want a rolling boil. You know, I always do that. So if you have a boil, it's really, really harsh, but we don't want it to be just an occasional bubble. We want it to have a nice, consistent bubbling going on as it cooks. As it cooks, the water or the chicken stock is going to evaporate a little bit, but it's also going to the rice is going to absorb the chicken stock. And that way, everything will have that wonderful flavor to it. If you're not a chicken person, you could absolutely do this with your choice of meat. Sometimes we see pork loin chops being used in it, and that's really delicious as well. Now, if you're doing seafood, I don't recommend using a chicken stock, because that's going to definitely overpower your dish. So that's when you want to use a seafood stock, which is readily available now in our grocery stores. Seafood, you have to get the rice and the vegetables cooking first, and then you only add your seafood in the last 10 minutes. That's a very important thing to do, because otherwise, you know, calamari and shrimp become very tough and rubbery, and the fish, if you're using pieces of fish, my favorite is like cod fillets, it'll just break down and become shreddy in the whole dish. So we're going to let this cook. You can see I have a little bit of rice that popped up to the surface. I'm just touching it down. It's very hard for me not to want to stir, because I really do want to stir. So we're going to let this cook. About 15 minutes from now, we'll be ready to start adding the rest of our ingredients. Okay, so now if you look at our paella, about 3/4 of the liquid is gone. So this is the perfect time. The first thing we want to do is we want to tuck our seafood in. For this one, we are using some just peeled and deveined shrimp. So let's just tuck them underneath a little bit so that they cook. Out of the 3 things that we're adding right now, the shrimp, the peas, and the artichoke hearts, the shrimp is the one thing that will take the longest to cook for this short amount of time, if that makes any sense. Then we're going to add our artichoke hearts. In they go. They just really need to warm up. And then we have our peas. So you can already see this has just a absolutely beautiful color to it. I'm going to put the lid on it, and I'm going to let it finish cooking. It takes about, I'd say, another 5 to 8 minutes. and then we'll be ready to serve. Okay, I think our paella is done. It was about 8 minutes. So look how gorgeous it is. So some of the telltale signs. Our shrimp is a nice, beautiful pink color, not that translucent gray that it was. Our chicken is definitely done. You can feel it. We do want to make sure, always make sure, taste some of the rice. Make sure it's seasoned properly because you can always add a little bit more salt to it right now. Oh, so good. So good. I definitely want to move it around a little bit so that the peas go down. And then let's put it on a plate. I love to always make sure I get a little fresh parsley on top. It just adds a nice fresh taste, but it also makes it look just a little bit prettier. And this dish is just super pretty. Little bit on top. You can put some all over our paella. And here you go, paella, one pot beautiful Spanish rice dish. If you like this recipe and you'd like to get more of them, please like and subscribe to this YouTube channel. Thanks, I'll see you soon, guys.